If I believe the golden age of advertising was over, I am fully cheating my clients. By the time founders are actually able to have a budget to afford a full-fledged 360-degree pan-India, I will go on IPL level campaign, they are already very disillusioned by the idea of marketing.
The brief is the most significant document. If your brief isn't great, you can't complain about the creative at the end of the day. You go to Myntra, there are 6,000 brands on Myntra. How is anyone going to discover your brand if it doesn't come to mind?
Advertising is such a thing which is sometimes would go live on a midnight for, because the idea was that it's really hard to.
Idea was to go live at midnight.
There was some idea.
Wow, I love how specific that example was. Huh? The idea was to go live at midnight.
Hey there, welcome to Marketing Mavericks with Indiefolio. Today we have PG from Talented and Meg from Early. It's going to be a fantastic conversation as we're going to talk about how they both got together and started Early. A lot of opinions and great advice for young marketeers and young agency owners to understand how to really be successful in this market. And we talk a lot about what the future of marketing and advertising could look like. You may know PG already from all the brilliant work him and his team do at Talented, who's won various awards. They've been behind some very memorable campaigns and been a client favorite for some time now. And Meg comes with a rich experience of over 15 years and has been really helping young companies understand the value of marketing and making marketing and advertising work, even if you've got a 15-month runway. So a truckload of insights even for entrepreneurs. Hey, thanks a lot for your time and welcome to the podcast, PG and Meg.
Hey, man.
Hi.
This is one of the first times we're having two folks on Marketing Mavericks, and we're very excited to talk about building an agency and doing advertising for brands in 2025 and beyond. But before we get to all of that, what I really wanted to understand is, when is it that the both of you started knowing each other? And while Early is just about 10 to 12 months old, if I'm not wrong, I think there is some background as to, how you folks met, and we'd love to kind of start with that.
Oh, you're right, Kavan. I think Early is about, it's going to be a year old. But Meg and I have known each other for, I think now, Meg, 15 years?
Close to that, yeah.
It's a great origin story. Meg used to be my ECD at this shop called Web Chutney, which is probably early 2010s. She was my super boss, right? So I don't think she and I worked together in parts for like really important campaigns. I think post some time at Web Chutney, Meg moved on to do a bunch of other things in the marketing ecosystem. I'm sure she'll touch upon that for a while. I stuck around in advertising, in Web Chutney, in fact, and along with a servicing partner who then became CEO of Web Chutney, and then we started up Talented together about 4 years ago. And each of us knew how we were building our careers, etc., all of that. And a little more than a year ago, I think, Meg, how long were you and Gautam talking about the idea of Early?
Almost for a year. We were talking almost for a year. And that this ecosystem, basically, when I was at Web Chutney, all of us were very close to each other. Sid, me, Gautam, all of us. So I used to tell Siddharth that Web Chutney is like Hotel California. You can never leave. You can get out but never leave. I was doing this whole fractional CMO thing for a while, and then I started talking to Gautam, and we actually did an educational program at Talented together, and that's how we started talking more and more. That's where the genesis of this partnership sort of began. A lot of that also came from the fact that Talented gets a lot of young startups reaching out, asking for how can we work with you, right? And Gautam and I and PG, we all felt that, that's not, you're not ready yet to work with Talented and do advertising campaigns and to do full-fledged comms. You have a lot more work to do in terms of just understanding what your marketing goals are, how your brand is, all of that. And so what if there was someone who could help young startups, new businesses with things like that? That's where Early came from, the thinking behind it.
It's very refreshing to hear a lot of folks from the creative background, right? The both of you talking a lot about outcomes, business metrics, etc. But is there a certain experience you both have had with your clients in your own organizations or together, that you felt that this is the need of the hour and we should position early this way?
I started my journey in advertising and I moved to content and business. So I did a lot of business roles early on in my career, right? So when PG joined also, by that time I was heading the Bombay office and I was responsible for revenue. So it's a lived experience for me because I'm in that driver's seat where I'm responsible for revenue. So I understand what it means in terms of every dollar that you spend, you need to get something back out of it, right? So from that lens, it was very clear to me. And also, I think I've personally been driven by impact. How can I create a bigger impact for the client, for the brand, versus just an output. So I think it was a natural sort of progression towards how do I now do this for brands. The question was which brands, right? And which brand can I create the most value for? So that was the decision making process that we sort of arrived at. And we arrived at it also from the lens of, hey, what is my background? Because I've worked with large brands, I've worked with small brands, startups, early stage business, all kinds of brands. And I understand, how things are different for different kinds of brands, right? But from a marketing services point of view, who needs this the most is where I started. And then we also met a lot of large marketers as part of this process. And we realized that very quickly that is the kind of marketer that does not need early. In fact, the young businesses, the small businesses for whom marketing itself is a function that there is no proof of concept of that function itself within the company. So that's what they needed. They need someone to come in and show them that marketing can be a lever of growth. And therefore, then the outcome conversation is a no-brainer. There's no other way to do it.
A lot of people are hearing today that you need to talk business, you need to talk numbers. If you want to start up a successful agency, you have to give outcomes. But conventionally, you get a lot of creative folks, especially in like an indie folio network, right, who've done some really good campaigns for the first 5-10 years of their career, mainly focused on creative and campaign. When they are trying to create an agency, right, they're always confused about differentiator. And if they also want to say, hey, results and my work is a differentiator, it's really hard, because saying quality and work and creativity is a differentiator could be very hard to objectify as a moat, right? And then there comes what you mentioned, which is giving outcomes, sharing growth, which a lot of people shy away from. That, hey, I've not really done it, and how do I really guarantee that? And I don't know, right? What's the right way to actually come to my USP as a services company? So if you can maybe share some thoughts on how can a creative agency founder do that for their agency?
I think in our case, most of us have some sort of double-digit experience in this field so far. We have a lot of things we hate about our industry, and that has always been a very reliable starting point. I think you hate something if you care about it, and I think in that sense, all of us, the leadership team at Talented and across the grid, we deeply hate a lot of status quo practices that goes on in our respect.
Could you share a few?
I know, man, like take your pick, right? I think in the creative agency, the broken relationship between talent and their employers is the biggest problem, and Talented itself is a response to that, right? So we have issues of right from bad pay to burnout to an irrelevance in the larger marketing budget and plan to outdated processes. The creative agency business is rife with problems like that. The problem is no one was doing anything about it. So Talented's USP basically became, listen, we're going to, at a policy level, fix a bunch of these things which we know are issues in the business, and we're going to hope for a trickle-down effect in the work. So that started with the financial structure of Talented itself. We're one of the very few employee-owned creative agencies across our part of the world. Way more makers than managers. I think upwards of 70% of our staff are creative people. So we have a very lean account management team, for instance, so you're not trying to build a business exclusively through relationships or largely through relationship, which kind of hits a glass ceiling. And we've seen that over the way the overall industry is shaped up, right, in the last 2 to 3 decades. That, for one, is the creative agency business. And it's been our longest running experiment so far, a princely time of 3.5 years. The second company in the grid is a creator led social agency called The New Thing. They're probably the only company you will speak to where everyone who you're speaking to on the other end probably has a 50K following for themselves on Instagram, on Twitter, or in other places. So these are creators on social telling you how to grow your brand on social. And what their enemies are completely different from they're adjacent, but they are different enemies. There are different things to fix in the social business than in the creative agency business, right? The amount of money wasted by someone who doesn't have that much money to waste in the name of marketing, in the name of positioning, in the name of jumping to a creative to a TVC before they're even ready for it, stuff like that. What that's kind of meant is by the time founders are actually able to have a budget to afford a full-fledged 360-degree pan-India, I will go on IPL level campaign, they are already very disillusioned by the idea of marketing. They're very disillusioned by the idea of external partners, and they come into this with a fairly cynical, risk-averse mindset. If this baggage did not exist, for those, I mean, out of 100 startups, probably 5 or 10 of them will make it big. But even for those 5 or 10 of them, this baggage exists. If that baggage doesn't exist, it won't be 5 or 10, it'll probably be 25 or 30 who make it big. And the flywheel between the creative and marketing business services ecosystem and the companies themselves will be in a much healthier place than it is today. So the vision was, in a way, to build these kind of challenger brands across the marketing creative services ecosystem. So yeah, all of us have things we hate, and our care kind of comes from that.
I think he's bang on there, because when I was on the other side in advertising, right, that was one of the things I hated was coming into digital advertising at a point where the industry was small and digital was treated as a third, fourth cousin, fifth cousin. What ended up happening was it was extremely tactical, and marketers would treat it in a very tactical way. Because of that, the marketing part of it was also very sort of tactical, right? Like, we never got the right information, we never got briefs correctly, we never got any of that. So that was one thing I hated. Like, why is the marketing part of this not well done enough for us to do our job well? And then when the industry got bigger, and I was at Scoop Whoop at the time, I was heading content, and I was working with a lot of startups. The problem shifted to just the kind of talent that was coming into startups in marketing was so tactical. It was so tactics driven. It was like, hey, let's do some content with Scoop Whoop, let's go viral, let's do this. It was all that. Again, where I felt that where is the strategic thinking that is going to build a brand from ground up? Have you ever even thought about the point of all of these tactics? Again, money that startups don't have, that you're throwing at various tactics without any thinking at all, because of things like strategy takes time, which to me feels like a very silly reason to not do strategy. It's usually a once a year effort. It's an effort that essentially shapes the rest of your year. So these are all things that I had problems with, which I think was, you always on the other side thinking, I can do that job so much better. Right. So I just got the opportunity to do that, which was nice. Yeah.
We were talking about like starting an agency, right? And while one angle is obviously the position, there's also when is the right time to start. There are people today who start right out of school or college. Some people do it for 10 years and they start. Some people take 25 years. We have the fractional CMO wave right now, where a lot of fractional CMOs are opening their own marketing agencies as well and doing collaborations. We tend to talk to a lot of creativepreneurs, solopreneurs who are young. Generally, the advice is credibility through relationships, through good work, right, is what you need to do to be successful. You mentioned aspects like, we don't want to build a company or an agency on top of just relationships. So is there a way where, younger creativepreneurs, solopreneurs who don't have what, let's say, your founding team had, try and kind of carve out a successful path for them? Any one of you can take this up.
I mean, Siddharth Rao started WebChutney after quitting as a copywriter from Grey when he was 19.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, all of us are slightly privileged, dude, to give a fair answer to this. Gautam and I and our leadership team at WebChutney in 2020, we were already like decently well known amongst a few circles in the industry. We kind of timed our exit along with our swan song at WebChutney, this campaign called the Unfiltered History Tour, which ended up becoming pretty much, I think, India's most awarded piece at Cannes Lion. First time an Indian agency got Agency of the Year, all of that. So the momentum, we kind of time talented in a way where the momentum of that campaign would kind of spill over to the press that the new agency would get. That kind of meant, I mean, if at all there's any learning from this, it's one of the most irrational regrets I have is not taking this huge ayahuasca break between WebChutney and Talented. Gautam and I were supposed to go to Brazil, like meet some shamans. We didn't do any of that. We literally quit WebChutney on a Friday, and I got married a couple of weeks earlier. We launched a campaign on a Friday, launched Talent on Monday. So yeah, so it the momentum fully worked in our favor, though that was the bet that we were kind of taking early as well. Meg and Gautam, we were in conversation for a long time. The shape of the company was fairly clear. Therefore, I don't think we have been in some desperate barren land and we are sons and daughters of the soil with some super humble origins. वो नहीं है इधर.
I mean, yeah, I could take a year to think about it, properly put together stuff and things like that, right? I mean, that's not to say the challenges after starting up are, any lesser. Even with Talented's privilege, they have challenges of their own when they're starting up because you're essentially going up against giants. Similarly with me, it's a new model. So there are challenges no matter what when you start up, right? But yeah, I think he's right in the sense that we had a lot more privilege coming into agency creation. But for young people starting out to create an agency, I think, you really have to think about what kind of agency you want to make, right? So there are out of 100 agencies, about 80 of them are average. There are only certain very small number of agencies that are doing the really great work and, where you can see impact as well as creativity, all of that happening. Where do you want to be? Do you want to start in the 99 and grow to the 1? Do you want to directly launch something that is at that level? A lot of those kind of questions come into play when you start thinking about agencies, right? So the other thing I feel with agencies, and I've said this to Gautam and PG also many times, is that most recession resistant business is very hard to fail. Actually, it's very hard to fail.
We have that in common with the Gujarati community.
Yeah, it's very hard to fail because it's the same set of clients, right? I mean, largely the same set of clients paying agencies. The work keeps rotating. And now with more and more project work coming in, there's a lot more, there's work for almost every kind of agency. Problems are of growth and sustenance and rate of growth and things like that.
One thing which was told to me when I started working for clients, which is about 10, 12 years ago, was the golden age of advertising is over. And I've been there for, I think, again, 10, 15 years working for clients. And that opinion seems to get stronger every time I speak to CMOs, right? Where they were like, there were days, in the 90s and 80s and before where they truly partnered with us. But we just discussed some time ago that it's a recession-proof business. There's so much work coming. There's more and more players increasing. The market's really increasing. So there seems to be some disconnect between, let's say, the demand and supply side here, right? And I often hear this from many, many people. What is your take?
No, man. Not at all. I wouldn't be doing this. I don't think this opinion is honestly shared by people who are doing a lot of hard work every day to make the industry better. It's very easy to have this opinion if you're kind of done with your time in the business and you're looking back and you're asked to make some summary about how you felt. It's impossible to have this opinion and still obsess over the work that you create and the value that you're adding to people, to clients every day. If I believe the golden age of advertising was over, I am fully cheating my clients. I'm fully taking them on a ride if I believe that. People like us who don't have this opinion, we have different incentives. So, which is why I think marketing, this is not an exact science. It has never been an exact science. So we are in an extremely different media landscape that we use than the one we used to operate in at one point in time. I think what the taste has evolved overall. The financial structures of companies have evolved. You're talking to people who have 11 to 15-month runway about how they see the idea of brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So if you can make a decision 30 years ago and be like, okay, I'm going to run this and this alone for the next 5 years, those are not the same kind of decisions that ought to be taken. The veterans of both marketing and advertising will have to realize that the industry that their next generation has inherited is not they did not leave this industry better than they found it. So I think there is a lot of inward looking to go. If someone is going around like proudly saying, oh yeah, the golden age was over, it was only there, and then why didn't they do enough to ensure that the next generation had a fair shot to make the golden age a platinum age? For what it's worth, right? So in that sense, no, I'm fully on the other end. My clients deserve to feel that they are very much in the best era of marketing and advertising that's possible. That's how we grow this.
Also, I think marketers cannot say that without understanding that they are part of the problem. Right? Any marketer saying that. You cannot say advertising agencies are to blame, because if you've followed the industry over the last 10-15 years, there have been massive changes and challenges that marketing has had to face, and it has not risen to many of those challenges. The brief is the most significant document, and because of which it's a domino effect. If your brief isn't great, you can't complain about the creative at the end of the day, right? So these are fundamental practices in marketing that have just been eroded over the years. And so then you can't sort of say, like you were saying, this, there is a shared responsibility.
It's not a responsible thing to tell someone like you.
Right.
It's very irresponsible to tell people like you or even younger that, the past, the best is behind. That is, then what are you going to do with your life then? You have your whole career, your life, your portfolio, everything is in front of you. That is absolutely not the mindset you or anyone should be entering this or allied fields with.
I think really refreshing to hear, and I think I fully, second that. We also spoke about how early is helping brands and startups recognize the need of smart marketing stack for your 0 to 1 or 1 to 10 journey. As a founder, quite a few things happen there. So when it comes to, let's say, marketing or advertising, unfortunately, the initial assumption is, celebrities and big campaigns which people have. And they feel that tactical performance ads, which I can do it on Canva, is a good 0 to 1 because nobody knows about my brand. I don't need like layered creative thinking, cannot really rely on that. I need to show use case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 CTA and a good landing page. And that's why this need of brand is very hard, right? Like for example, often there are co-founders who come from a finance or an engineering background who say, what's the ROI growth model here on brand? As you said, you're thinking in 15 months. It's really difficult to even justify it internally. However, people who've succeeded, they end up having great premiumization. They end up having greater margins, better repeat and referral. But why did that happen? Is really hard to pinpoint to. It's many things, actually. So can you really kind of maybe, if you both want to take a stab at it, but Meg, since you've been leading early, kind of unpack how you end up selling brand as an important activity along with the overall marketing picture to young companies?
There are a couple of things here, right? So one is that there are these bullshit marketing ideas, right, that float around. Some of these have been created by the marketing advertising community itself, right? So things like, once you build a brand, you can never change it. None of these things apply, okay, once you lock a positioning, you're locked into it forever. Or something that has been working for 15 years, you have to come in and immediately change it because we have been doing the same thing for so long. Customer doesn't care, but you want to change it. So there are many of these things that have sort of entered into marketing, which then a founder coming in from a non-marketing background looks at this and says, this doesn't make any sense. Like, how am I going to do this? At the beginning of my journey, when I have no customers, I'm pre-revenue. How do I know what my brand should be? How do I make a decision there? And if I make a decision, what if I make the wrong decision? A lot of this non-commitment to brand also comes from a place of fear that I'll make the wrong decision. This is not my forte. I don't know how to do this. I don't understand this. Let's just not do it. Decision paralysis leads to no decision, right? That's typically what happens. So let's just do the thing that I understand, which is let's get me sales. And that's a perfectly okay thing to do if you want to get to your first 100 customers and you just want to get them to buy your product in whatever way you want to get them to buy your product. It's a great thing to do. As long as you build on top of that and you say that, hey, I'm going to learn from these customers. I'm going to understand why they bought, what was the reason, how did this product make an impact in their lives, and maybe there's a foundation there of something meaningful that I can now start building on, right? So I think that these sort of dogmas of marketing and advertising, we should first of all stop imposing on young founders who come they come with their own skill sets, right? This guy is a great engineer, like he understands that. We cannot expect him to be a great marketer. These are things that we also need to be a bit sensitive to. The second thing is, I think when we sort of launch a product, you've created a brand. There's some packaging, there is some messaging, there is something that's gone into it, right? So there is some idea of that product in that customer's mind already. Now you have to choose whether to be intentional about it or not. Or do you just launch it, keep sort of using Instagram and other such platforms to collapse the funnel and get people to buy? So here is now a 200 crore business, but no one ever remembers the name of the brand. If you ask them, hey, you go to Myntra, there are 6,000 brands on Myntra. How is anyone going to discover your brand if it doesn't come to mind? When I say white t-shirt, I have 3 brands that come to mind. I'm not going to go through 6,000 brands on Myntra, right? Brand is a shortcut also, no, for customers. It's a great hack. It's just about deciding, do I want to be intentional about it? When do I want to be intentional about it? What is my priority here? Hey, I have not reached PMF. I'm going to have something loose. Okay, my positioning is going to be loose and broad. That's fine. The other extreme of dismissing brand completely, because like you said, there are very clear growth impacts of brand. Pricing power, equity gives you valuation. Like you don't want to build a business, you want to sell it in 5 years. If you have a brand, you're going to get more valuation.
I want to now talk a little bit about running a creative company, right, with a bunch of people. And it's very refreshing again to hear the way you take care of your people. I also run a creative company, a network, and there's always so much pressure to be faster. I think AI has made our job, at least my job, very bad. Now clients are like, "Arey, abhi to aur jaldi karke do, abhi main karke deta hu." And I'm like, "Arey, okay." So that's become a big pressurizing thing. And often because advertising is such a thing which is sometimes you would go live on a Sunday, you would go live on a midnight because the idea was that. It's really hard to.
Idea was to go live at midnight.
I mean, there was some idea.
Wow, I love how specific that example was. Huh? The idea was to go live at midnight.
Like it has to go live by tonight on the website, and everybody looks at it or whatever. It's a drop. So there are these really hard global dates we follow, right? It's not like a product launch which I am deciding with my board. It's like
Mother's Day,
Christmas, it's Mother's Day. Like, wo jayega nahi, that's the day. And also being sane as a human being, as a founder as well, right? So how do you really balance this constant pressure to be faster, be new, be creative, but also recognize that more and more people now want to have work-life balance. They want to have a good life in the agency and the creative sector. So how did you guys crack that?
The creative agency business, it's show business. Like you have a movie is not going to get pushed from a Friday to a Saturday. If you think that, let's say, the actor's birthday is a great day to put out the trailer of the film, 100% you're doing it for a particular reason. So I think the trick let me take this thing that you said of this idea that you're supposed to, like the creative idea was to go live at 12 o'clock in the morning, right? Then I think it's unlikely to have a team who's like, I'm getting burnt out by this type thing, because they're like, no, this was the thing, this was the idea, right? So burnout a lot has to do with spending more time on stuff that's not in your control. I mean, you look at the history of artists, they love spending more time than they should on things that they are in their control very much. So a large part of this is giving the people who are doing the work way more control over the work itself, and allowing them to be adults and talk to each other about the decisions that they're making. Secondly, and this is the hard part, it's possible if you're very good. It's possible to strike this balance and do all of that if you're very good. If you're not very good, you will struggle. And the trouble is, most people in our business, it's a very embarrassing truth to admit if you're not that good. No one likes to say it. If you're running a product business, it's possible to look at one shirt and on the other shirt and be like, yes, this quality is better. Right. But if you're dealing with people, no one's going to come out and be like, yeah, they actually do. This person actually does better work and they do actually better work, right? So it does get into a slightly subjective thing. So it's easier to blame it on some system rather than recognizing that, oops, I am not good enough to command that flex. And it is a flex for within the status quo. It is a flex to be able to say to, let's say, your clients or any external partners that this is how much time we're going to need for something in order for it to come out in a way that we are really, really happy with it. And if that's not possible, to have an open dialogue and a negotiation and to be able to say no. And all of this is way easier done if the work is really good. The trouble is, if you try to fix this in isolation, it's not going to work, because that person who you've just given 3 more days to crack something, unfortunately, they're not good enough to crack something worth that extra time. Then what do? Then as a business owner, you're like, yeah, I bet on the wrong horse then, because I'm giving this particular creative person all of this thing in the world and they're not, able to think back. So it's that part is a double-edged sword, dude. So especially in the creative agency business, if you have an amazing talent pool, you can achieve all this.
I think makes a lot of sense. As a parting thought, I'd love if, Meg, you can go, and then PG, you can just share a takeaway, which essentially helps, young creative founders who want to start an agency to know, if I'm starting and this is my first year, what's that one thing I should focus on to ensure that I have a good shot at making a successful agency?
For me, it's firstly, know your customer. I don't think we do enough of that. I think because there are so many agencies, we start with product. We say, this is what I'm going to build, and then I'll find the market, right? I think we should be thinking about who is buying and who is the customer and what their needs are, and evolve your idea from there. Think demand side instead of thinking supply side. That's one. And second is, and I think this is a big problem in agencies, do not try to do everything. I have yet to see an agency credentials deck where they're not saying we'll do SEO, search, creatives, performance marketing, everything. They will do everything. Like, focus on the things you can really do well and do them really, really well, right? Like, focus. I think that is the main thing.
Have a point of view on the world. If you're running a creative agency, that is where you get taste. It's the only thing you'll be able to defend. The good as a word is interpreted differently by everybody. So what your good is comes from your point of view about the world, life,
right?
Things outside business, all of that.
I think is a great way to end the podcast on. It was awesome talking to the both of you, especially as a founder of a creative network myself. Learned a lot. I hope you guys had fun.
Awesome, yeah, this is great fun.
Thanks for everybody to kind of tune in so far as well. If you'd like to have another set of agency founders come in and share insights, do like, share, and subscribe. And once again, Megan, PG, thanks a lot. See you soon.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.